Hind Swaraj, or Indian Home Rule, by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Chapter 7. Why was India lost? Reader, you've said much about civilization, enough to make me ponder over it. I do not now know what I should adopt and what I should avoid from the nations of Europe. But one question comes to my lips immediately. If civilization is a disease, and if it has attacked England, why has she been able to take India, and why is she able to retain it? Editor, your question is not very difficult to answer, and we shall presently be able to examine the true nature of Swaraj. For I am aware that I have still to answer that question. I will, however, take up your previous question. The English have not taken India. We have given it to them. They are not in India because of their strength, but because we keep them. Let us now see whether these propositions can be sustained. They came to our country originally for purposes of trade. Recall the company Bahadur. Who made it Bahadur? They had not the slightest intention at the time of establishing a kingdom. Who assisted the company's officers? Who was tempted at the sight of their silver? Who bought their goods? History testifies that we did all this. In order to become rich all at once, we welcomed the company's officers with open arms. We assisted them. If I'm in the habit of drinking bhang, and a seller thereof sells it to me, am I to blame him or myself? By blaming the seller, shall I be able to avoid the habit? And if a particular retailer is driven away, will not another take his place? A true servant of India will have to go to the root of the matter. If an excess of food has caused me indigestion, I will certainly not avoid it by blaming water. He is a true physician who probes the cause of disease, and if you pose as a physician for the disease of India, you will have to find out its true cause. Reader, you are right. Now I think you will not have to argue much with me to drive your conclusion home. I am impatient to know your further views. We are now on a most interesting topic. I shall, therefore, endeavor to follow your thought and stop you when I am in doubt. Editor, I am afraid that in spite of your enthusiasm, as we proceed further we shall have differences of opinion. Nevertheless, I shall argue only when you will stop me. We have already seen that the English merchants were able to get a footing in India because we encouraged them. When our princes fought among themselves, they sought the assistance of Company Bahadur. That cooperation was versed alike in commerce and war. It was unhampered by questions of morality. Its object was to increase its commerce and to make money. It accepted our assistance and increased the number of its warehouses. To protect the latter, it employed an army which was utilized by us also. Is it not then useless to blame the English for what we did at that time? The Hindus and the Mohammedans were at daggers drawn. These two gave the company its opportunity. Thus we created the circumstances that gave the company its control over India. Hence it's truer to say that we gave India to the English than that India was lost. Reader, will you now tell me how they are able to retain India? Editor, the causes that gave them India enable them to retain it. Some Englishmen state that they took and they hold India by the sword. Both these statements are wrong. The sword is entirely useless for holding India. We alone keep them. Napoleon is said to have described the English as a nation of shopkeepers. It's a fitting description. They hold whatever dominions they have for the sake of their commerce. Their army and their navy are intended to protect it. When the Transvaal offered no such attractions, the late Mr. Gladstone discovered that it was not right for the English to hold it. When it became a paying proposition, resistance led to war. Mr. Chamberlain soon discovered that England enjoyed a suzerainty over the Transvaal. It's related that someone asked the late President Kruger whether there was gold in the moon. He replied that it was highly unlikely, because if there were, the English would have annexed it. Many problems can be solved by remembering that money is their God. Then it follows that we keep the English in India for our base self-interest. We like their commerce, they please us by their subtle methods and get what they want from us. To blame them for this is to perpetuate their power. We further strengthen their hold by quarreling amongst ourselves. If you accept the above statements, it's proved that the English entered India for the purposes of trade. They remain in it for the same purpose, and we help them to do so. Their arms and ammunition are perfectly useless. In this connection, I remind you that it's the British flag which is waving in Japan, and not the Japanese. The English have a treaty with Japan for the sake of their commerce, and you will see that, if they can manage it, their commerce will greatly expand in that country. They wish to convert the whole world into a vast market for their goods. That they cannot do so is true, but the blame will not be theirs. They'll leave no stone unturned to reach the goal. End of chapter 7. Why was India lost?